Hello everyone, it is I, the Solo Gamer, returning once again. And as you can see, I'm still stuck on the PS5 because I have managed to successfully get my computer back online. What I have not managed to successfully get it to do is work with a GPU. For some reason, GPU just didn't want to kick over. I think it could be a bad power cable. The rest of the system powers on just fine, can run with the integrated graphics on my AMD. All seems to work great, but I just can't get it to power all the way through. It'll finish the post, it'll finish the boot, but then it just never displays video of any kind. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on where I was using my other available items, my Xbox, my PS3, my Polymega, to continue to put out some content. Got some interesting videos of a personal nature coming up. But today it is Shoot 'em Up Central. Today we dive into ship blasting, sub smashing, alien obliterating action. So first, let's begin with Advanced Buster Hawk, Grey Lancer. 1990s action arcade shooter, though not arcade actually, it was specifically released on like the Mega Drive. And it was one of those cases where it's one of those rare Mega Drive games that has like a mammoth, cult following, but no one ever. They never released large numbers of the game, so it wasn't like it was readily available to everybody. Year 2025 of the space era. Invaders attacked from deep space, outnumbering Earth's forces. First Fleet. Flagship Oberon. Celtic mythology. Titania's husband. Lost 50% of your fleet. The heavy cruiser Titania. They just warped the flagship out of existence, because that's what it sure looks like. You gotta remember, this was 1990s. So this kind of stuff was insane at the time. On the Mega Drive, no less. And naturally, it of course has that anime style that was popular in the 90s. Yeah. Save me the yappity yap. Let's get to it. But it was one of those weird sort of esoteric games that kind of stood out on the Mega Drive. Not your usual game back then. But you actually had multiple tactical technology. And like depending upon how you wanted to play, you could change your strategy to match. Now this is actually, for 1990 on the Mega Drive, this is actually an impressively looking game. Like, we're not talking this isn't going to win any awards or, break new ground. I mean, it's a standard sci-fi shooter. But it had smooth scrolling, solid visuals, a really solid set of effects work, and no small amount of And to be fair, there was no small amount of visually, distinct enemy types and all that kind of jazz. But the sheer number of tactics and weapons you could employ in the game kind of made it stand out. Like, it wasn't your average day, it wasn't your average, standard game. This game was a big shock, especially given that at the time, most of the gaming industry would have immediately told you that, like, for shoot 'em ups, the Nintendo was the master. Like, if you wanted good shoot 'em up stuff, the Nintendo was the king. Oh, see, I just got nuked. But check this out. If you want, you actually have a reboot option. So let's say you wanted to reboot because you got caught off guard and you made a mistake. You actually can back up and try again and see if you could have avoided it if you'd been faster or been more on the ball. And for a game like this, like for shooters, that's an amazingly cool little feature because of just how insanely difficult these games were back then. Is the huge enemy the junk field? Because that's what it feels like right now. But yeah, like the game is a rock solid encapsulation of the 90s era shoot 'em up. Just pixel perfect perfection for its time. And even by today's standards, it's not a bad game in any way, shape, or form. Plus, with all the extra bonuses, you can have a lot better time getting through it without the brutal difficulty that so many other shooters of that era had. I mean, later games like G Darius would have similar abilities and effects, but they would come much, much later, whereas, this game had all kinds of neat stuff like tracking weaponry, multi-weapon systems, different tactics, and the updated features like rewind are really cool to have, though that is pretty common with shoot 'em up revives nowadays. Almost all of them have a rewind function to some degree. Still, it's actually astonishing to see a game that like I said, I don't remember ever seeing this on store shelves anywhere. I don't even know if it ever came to America. And if it did, it came in such a limited run that it's probably worth a fortune now if you have it. Are they dropping turtles with guns on their backs? That seems needlessly mean-spirited. But yeah, as an example of the 90s arcade sort of madness brought home to console, this game is a peak example of just what was happening back in those days. And there were so many different weapons you could pick up, so many different systems and equipment. You could actually choose whether or not to wield one particular weapon or not, and each weapon had its strengths and weaknesses. One of the biggest complaints I had about Thunder Force, so as much as I love Thunder Force 5, it's one of the best games ever in that regard. But one of the things I didn't like about the game was just the fact that once you got free range and homing, pretty much all the other weapons became useless. Free range's damage output and homing's ability to clear screens of mobs made them the absolute pinnacle. Everything else was secondary. Now if I'm going to make an argument, I will say that one thing about this game is it is not particularly difficult. But it is, at its core, an utter and complete blast to play. And I definitely recommend it. It's available on PS5. So it's worth getting your hands on if you can get your grubby little paws on it. But it's also an example of like the shoot 'em up genre made manifest. And another place you'll find a lot of that is the arcade archives. Aero Fighters, Metal Hawk, Final Star Force, another good shooter. The Macross Archives Super Dimension Macross game is also exceptionally good, and Viper Phase 1. But today's item from the archives is a little title by IREM. You see, this game originally came out in the arcades many years ago, 1993. So 3 years after Gunlancer, In the Hunt would be released in the arcades and then eventually make its way to the PS1 and Saturn. There's dispute about which one's better. The PS1 tends to run smoother. The Saturn has better music and some visual effects. It's a toss-up. But this is the actual OG arcade version. And with the arcade archives, one of the best things about this is that there is, in fact, zero limit. You can play as much as you want. Credits are infinite. Now, this is, of course, the Japanese version and the English version. No real censorship on these that I'm aware of, for whatever that might be worth. The South Pole. Cloudy. Welcome. You are ordered to go into DAS territory and destroy their system before it's too late. Good luck. Welcome to the In the Hunt. In the Hunt is one of those games that took a common trope, the standard side-scrolling shooter, and decided to make things a little bit different by adding some very unique secondary features. Most notably, the fact that the game's engine, combat, and everything else about it takes the perspective of being undersea. So when you're playing this game, weapon upgrade. You're actually confined to the bottom part of the screen because you cannot leave that space. You're stuck there. But on the other hand, your weapon packaging and equipment can change dramatically depending upon what you're using. For example, the missiles, when you're underwater, they act as vertical torpedoes. Really cool stuff. And totally impractical in a real sense, but hey, I mean, are we really arguing about a game where you're spending all your time under the ocean, firing rapid-fire torpedoes at, machine gun speeds? Yes, I think not. But the game's greatest strengths and, in some ways, its biggest weakness is both its incredible intensity and that intensity making the game incredibly difficult. Thankfully, with Arcade Archives, that issue and the frustration that used to come with it back in the arcade loses a lot of its punch, because now you actually can play the game exactly the way it was meant to be played. And just enjoy yourself. No limits, unlimited ammo, unlimited lives. You just tear through it at your own pace. This is why I'm such a big game preservation guy, because I feel like it's an absolute necessity that we keep games alive and keep a record of them, so that going forward, we'll never actually lose the games that we once had. Which, on that subject, I found out recently, and this is something I can't really get involved with yet, but I will eventually. There's a project to actually get Battleborn working on an actual system without the servers, and it's been successful. from what I was told, and again, this is just the information I got online, but a project was created. Oh, Shrag missiles. I don't know what they call them. Like they're supposed to be like corkscrew missiles, but they're essentially torpedoes that create wakes behind them that tear everything in front of them to pieces. Very efficient, but this level is just the first level I'm already getting absolutely scragged on. So yeah. But as I mentioned, this is an incredibly difficult game. And a game that, you know, infinite credits was basically made to circumvent. But as someone who used to play this game on the old PlayStation for hours at a time, you better believe I must have torn through this game a few dozen times over the years. And it's definitely a game that I feel like I sunk who knows how much money into the game back in the arcade. But it feels like the perfect kind of like co-op chaos for a lazy weekend with your buddies, just playing together with infinite quarters, trying to make it to the end as a team. Of course, that doesn't change the fact that the game isn't without its flaws. It is an IREM shooter, which means it's tough as balls, hard as nails, and they don't ever relent. You get attacked constantly. It's a battle for survival. But it's still fun as hell. The bosses are also a standout because they're actually super cool, and each one has a unique gimmick or tactic to it. Like this guy is the chains and the missiles and the constant battering from all the debris, but that also can be turned against him because the missiles actually turn back on him and can cause him to stagger or get damaged. There you go. To the bottom with you. But again, this is the perfect example of a near flawless shoot 'em up that feels both energetic, fun, and intense. Sunken Town. Oh yes, I remember you. Otherwise known as "Welcome to what's left of our city. Could you please stop bombing it?" No, I don't think I will. Yeah, like I used to dump so much pocket change into games like these in the arcade. And to be fair, like when I say in the arcade, I'm not being facetious. I grew up when arcades were still a thing. In fact, there was a place near my home that was essentially a pizza joint with a massive arcade that was there most of my childhood until I think middle school. Eventually it went under as arcades began to fade away. And then they moved to a new location, and it wasn't the same, really. And that place got bought out and then disused and then eventually shuttered. And now there's like a Rainbow Foods there or something, but there's little to nothing left of it. Another example of the old world being forgotten and left to rot. I really do miss those old days. Not for nothing, but there was a time when you could literally bike down to the video store, buy or rent a game, play that game for a week or two, take it back, turn it back in, and then continue on with, and then get another game, and keep going. I mean, I'm sure some people remember Blockbuster, but how many kids today have actually ever seen one? I know I have. I used to go to one down the road from my home every bloody day. Well, every bloody weekend. Participate in their little fighting game tournament back in the day. Again, me and my mid-tier skills only made it to about 5th place locally. I was okay, but I wasn't as dedicated to it as some people because I was actually in school doing other stuff. So I didn't wind up with any of the downtime you'd need to actually commit to a game like that. A pity too, because I really did love games back then. I just didn't have the time because my parents kept me busy. I was in all kinds of other stuff, sports and what have you. Scouts at the time. Like, it was kind of what it was. But I very much was of the opinion that, whoa, hey, you guys don't look like you're friendly. What are you doing down here? Oh yeah, I love this part. To get through this, you literally have to nuke this building. The Scragaheim torpedo. Basically, it's like a DOT effect for anything that gets caught in the wake field. The only downside to it is that slow firing. So if you don't catch them in the first barrage, you are going to lose your target. But no, I very much am a fan of these kinds of old school shoot 'em ups. And I love the fact that the Arcade Archives is providing people a means by which to actually experience them. Like, the Arcade Archives have done more for game preservation simply through their existence than you could ever expect. Oh, the fight is on. We're in the arena. The sunken arena, and these guys are looking for a brawl. Alright. Fine then. If that's what you want. Ah, dang it. Yeah, their whole gimmick is that they use the whirlwind to hold you in place. It makes it almost impossible to get away from the attacks. One thing you can do is after you die, you can rush in and immediately like unload an entire volley on them. And it should be enough to keep them from killing you. But it is a hard fight. Again, Iron. Their motto might have been, we're here to take your money because we're going to kick your ass. They were like the bullies of the arcade world in a weird way. But, again, they also made amazing shooters. Like, that was their bread and butter, was shooters. I love how you stamp their corpse on the hull as a marker saying, yeah, I beat you. Alright, the channel. We'll save it here. Just about time to pause this video. But this is the thing. This is why I bring this up, is that games like In the Hunt are perfect examples of how the gaming industry has changed over the years, where shooters were once the dominant force in the gaming world, and now they're a secondary thought. They're an afterthought. They're relics. And you still have games like you still have games like them, but they're usually a pet project or nostalgia grabs. It is what it is. That being said, while my computer's in recovery, and I'm trying to get it back together, I got a bunch of stuff on the Xbox and PS3 to hold us together and keep my videos coming. And next time we'll be diving into the absolute utter amazement that is Aliens Fireteam Elite. Arguably the second best Aliens game released in the last decade or two. Now, to be fair, it depends on how much you like Alien Isolation. I actually think this is the better game simply because of gameplay. But in terms of everything else, I would very much argue that Alien Isolation is the better game to Elite Fireteam, and a lot of that boils down to the fact that Alien Isolation is better at doing aliens than most things related to aliens currently do, and I say that with absolutely zero restraint or hesitation. But by the same token, there is a notable problem with a lot of the gaming industry doing licensed shit that winds up being bad shit. I'm sorry. Just fact of the fact. So, that kind of. The fact that it was a good game to begin with kind of caught me off guard. The fact that I poured so many hours on the PC into it, another factor entirely. But, not my place. Anyway. Anyway, my system is showing that I've got aliens ready to go, so I'm going to pause this video here. Ooh. I need to reset that time, don't I? Oh, that's right, because we recently had a power outage and it knocked the system's time and date out of sync because of it. And for some reason it did not update correctly because it's still stuck on where is it? Mountain Standard. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, me in the good old Southwest. But yeah, like this is, for whatever reason it nuked my date and time for this thing, so I'll have to reset that. But anyway, we'll continue here in the next video with Aliens Fireteam Elite. And I'm going to see if I can fit all three of the first three missions into one run and show you just how the game works, okay? I'll see you then. This is the Solo Gamer signing off. Back soon.